My experience as an African American person in America has been stressful.
Right from wrong. I mean, it's like having common sense. Like, it's not like a specific thing. You just know right from wrong.
Sometimes it definitely hurts because you want people to look at you and see you as a human.
If you had, the love of God in your heart, then you would not treat someone less than.
Racism has been tearing away at the lives of black people in our country for centuries. Since Trayvon Martin's murder in 2012, the Black Lives Matter movement has erupted, gaining even more momentum this summer of 2020 with the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. Now, I don't have a definitive answer or know exactly how we overcome racism, but I feel the obligation to tell the stories of my black friends and family, stories that must be heard.
Letting him out the door. I let him out, but I'll be lying if I didn't say I'm concerned when I do. I am concerned. I'm concerned. I want to know where he is all the time. If he's gone after a while, even if he tells me he's somewhere, I'm like, I need to know, all the time where you are. Just so I have that comfort in knowing he's okay. I don't want anything to happen to him, and that scares me. I don't really let him go certain places unless I'm there, or if his dad can be there, or another parent is there who I know is going to look out for my son. He has pretty good friends, so I've been grateful for that, which makes it easier to let him go. But I'm very cautious. I'm more so nosy now. He has to tell me everywhere he is.
So a month ago, I was driving and I was coming out of a parking lot, and there was this guy on a motorcycle. So it was already hard to see him because he's on a motorcycle, a little motorcycle. And I was blindsided by some bushes, and I turned out into the street and I did not see him, but he came running out of nowhere, so I cut him off, but it wasn't like I was intentionally trying to cut him off. And I cut him off, and we got to a red light, and he starts cursing. He starts saying some words, and I rolled down my window to hear what he's saying. And he starts saying, like, calling me a nigger, and saying that's why they're killing you niggers now, and this and that. And I was just looking at him like, obviously you have some built up anger inside, I'm not gonna let you shed that on me, So it took a lot of me to just continue to keep going. But yeah, it was like a almost surreal experience, but not too surreal because that type of stuff really happens, like, in America. So I wasn't too shocked because, like, it's been happening, but that's my first time ever experiencing it. So a lot was going through my head, but I have such a strong mind. I was just able to keep going because my life is good. I'm blessed. I wake up every day and I go to sleep every night. Amazing, so I didn't really let that affect me. It could have, but it didn't.
He had a recent incident with his bike being stolen by a white guy. And him and his friend went chasing after the guy. And I was like, no, you can't do that. Even though, I knew he was upset, it bothered him, it bothered me. But I was concerned that that was his first reaction, that he went chasing after him. Because if anyone had saw him, or if the police had saw him, they would have stopped him first. Why are you chasing after this guy? It could look like they're after him when he's the one that did wrong to them. And so having him to think before he reacts, I'm not always there to control that narrative. So I have to trust that he will do it. Be careful how you are out here, regardless to what's happening to you, because you might be the one to be in more trouble than the other person. And it's not fair, but I'd rather him use wisdom than to be out here and get caught in some foolishness, because he wasn't wise, you know. And that's just my concern, the biggest concern for me. I want my son to come back home.
Well, I'm a black man, first and foremost. My name's Thomas Waith. I'm 19. I'm in college at Marquette. And race has definitely been something that I've had to... There's definitely been a learning curve, I'd say. When I was younger, you didn't really understand it. You just kind of knew that people looked different from you. For me, it wasn't really any big deal because I have a black mom and a white dad. So seeing kids who didn't look like me, but also seeing kids who looked like me was pretty normal. But I think definitely as I got older, I started to realize in our town, in our country, in the world, that there are a lot more racial issues. I haven't really had any per se with, any really bad things happen. I got called the N-word by a white person. That happened in like 6th grade. So I was definitely aware of it at an early age, but I feel like it definitely didn't hurt my feelings, because at that age I didn't really, like, I understood the history of the word, but it didn't really affect me as much as it did when I got older and I started seeing more white people saying the N-word and singing it in songs, saying it to their non-black friends. So it kind of, in the first 2 years of high school, it was normal to see that. And then as I got older and I started to understand my identity more and started to identify more strongly with the black side of my family, of my heritage, I started to see how wrong it was. I started to see the numbers in classes, less black kids, and I was in all honors all 4 years. So for me, I was always in a very white-dominated space. I didn't really have a whole lot of black friends, I'd say, until the end of high school.
Well, we do live in a white conservative town, so I remember at one point Josiah wanted his ears pierced, and this was a while ago, and I couldn't help thinking, well, people around here already see him as, I imagine maybe they already saw him as
the stereotypical image of an African American.
Yeah, the stereotypical image. I thought, like, for example, if the cops pulled him over, for some reason I thought, well, now, not only does he have long hair, he's African American, and he has his ears pierced in this conservative white town, I felt like it'd be one more thing that, they could think, well, he's a kid who could be guilty.
It's an annoyance that you have to have this conversation with your child. When they start driving, and some people just don't understand that, and they don't understand the relationship that the police have with the African American communities. Why it's disjointed, why it's disconnected, and it has to do with history. So if people understood history, there wouldn't be this craziness of Black Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter, All Lives Matter. If people understood their history and understood the nature of racism and systemic racism and how it evolves over time, but yet it's still the same. So if people become more aware, and I think people became more aware, or what people say woke, if you want to use that term, after George Floyd was killed. It's something people were saying year after year after year throughout the years, but people just did not understand, did not get it.
I understand that it's people discriminating against their skin color against another person. People will grab their purse if they see a black guy in the street. Cops will pull people of color over more.
And when they do get pulled over, they're more likely to experience police brutality.
I feel more comfortable on my black side of the family. I'll say that off the bat. I've had issues with my dad with race. I remember when I was applying for colleges, I was thinking about going to Morehouse, the HBCU. My dad really didn't want me to go for some reason. And the first thing he said to me when I told him I wanted to go there is that I wasn't black enough to go there. And that, I think, is something that set me back a lot. It hurt, you know what I mean? I couldn't understand why he would say that to his black son. That was the one thing that I still remember and that really sticks out to me, was him saying that. Because that was the first indication that I got that, you know, I could still have family that were white and they would still look at me as other than, or still look at me as something that they're not. That was the first indication that, you know, not all family members are created equal, you know what I mean? And that people, regardless of who you are to them, will still have prejudice, will still have a certain way of thinking, regardless of, you know, if you're still blood with them or not.
So I just know a lot of things that happen with other people. Like, there's like other kids saying N-words and stuff. Like, I ignore it because it was like, there's no point in you saying it. And then not everybody has to like go super, super crazy about it. But it's not really a word anyone should be using. I understand people use it in music. Like, they do that just because they tell stories using it. But sometimes they don't tell stories, they just use it to say it. And I don't think it's the word that it should just not be said. It's just a word that shouldn't be here anymore. It's just...
I agree.
Yeah, it's just really different. And I mean, there's a lot of people at my school. Like, so many, you don't even notice most of the racism. But sometimes you can tell, like, certain people like turn around, if they will see you, make eye contact, they just walk away. But you never know, because people are very shady, but it's just how the world is.
What about your sports? I think he experienced a lot of it when he was doing sports.
When I play football, especially wrestling, we got a lot of tough like country boys in wrestling, and they might be a little like mean. I've wrestled a bunch of people. They've said the N-word to me while I'm wrestling. That just gives me more power though, because like you say a word that you shouldn't say, I'm gonna kick your... Well, I can't say that, but I'll just mess you up. And when it comes to football, people get so mad at me. Like, I really play against a lot of like teams that are just white, and they get really mad because like I'm like a big guy, and if you see me, I'm gonna hit you really hard, and they get really mad. But you know, you just gotta understand, it's just a game, and if you can't play the game, don't play it no more.
After hearing all of these stories, one can't help but think, now what? What can we do as individuals and as a society to make sure that all black people are liberated and have a voice?
Everybody, based on their experiences, based on their environments, based on how they grew up and what they learned, they all see everything differently. So I think it's more about creating an atmosphere or culture in open-mindedness. And I think we have to start teaching more ethical, moral things in regards to race and in regards to equality, and like even stuff like wage gap and the disparity between men and women, and like how that kind of fits into things too, because it's not just black versus white, you know, it's not just hetero versus homo or what all these other things. There's so many different things, so many different beliefs that are happening and coming out right now. I just think that people as a whole need to work on open-mindedness and being accepting of other people's views or beliefs, traditions, their systems, but you don't have to impose your will on them. You don't have to say you're not allowed to go to church or go to synagogue, temple. You're not allowed to, you know, face Mecca 5 times a day and pray. You're not allowed to wear a turban or traditional Muslim dress. I think that part of what makes America great is the fact that it is really a melting pot of cultures and diversity. But I think that with that comes a lot of responsibility and a lot of things that we collectively have to do differently as a country, as one body. And that takes everybody. It's not just one person. It's not just Trump. It's not just the Republicans versus the Democrats. It's everybody.
My best friend, one of my best friends is white, right? He's been my best friend since elementary school. But even growing up, I never experienced racism. They talked to me like I was one of their own, brought me places every time. No, nothing, no racism at all. If we could have stuff like that, you know what I'm saying, then we can make progress. And teaching too. I think parents need to teach their kids that racism is not okay. I've always been taught right from wrong. I mean, obviously don't harm anyone, be respectful, always respect women. If anybody is racist towards you, don't be racist back, because negative energy colliding is just fire.
Everybody has to figure out their way around it, because you can't control people as much as you try. People have to individually want to change and change the way they think in order for real change to happen. And if the other person don't want to do that, then you got to make the change and figure your way around that person or that thing of racism. And I think that's what we're all been trying to do, you know, trying to figure out our ways around it. And it's hard, especially when it's easy to figure out your way around the racism from an individual, but it is not easy when it's in the system. It's like in a maze, and you're trying to figure your way out, and you never find the way out. You're just stuck in the maze, and that's what that feels like. That's what that feels like. So I'm hoping for the system to change for sure. Maybe it has to happen the opposite way. The system change, and then maybe people will change. I don't know. I don't know. I'm just hoping that happens, you know. The right people get in place to make those changes.
Change only happens if you believe in it. It might not come quickly, and it certainly won't be easy, but I have hope that eventually our country will overcome racism. It will be a thing of the past. It will be history. We will learn from it. We will grow together. We will grow stronger as a nation. Our communities will stand united. That is the vision that I see for our future, and I am hopeful that we can make that into a reality. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch this documentary. Do your part, whether that is big or small. We all have a role to play in this. Please continue to support the Black Lives Matter movement.